I think it's pretty safe to say at this point that With Love Meghan Season 2 was one of the final nails in the coffin over at Netflix. They still have a couple more to go until a lot of people just decide to check out. But we know one thing for certain right now is that the Christmas special and other specials, among other projects that are being produced by Meghan Markle that are going to be accepted by Netflix, it's not going to be a good look for them. It's most certainly not going to be a good look for Ted Sarandos. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, one thing about Meghan Markle right now is that we already know that she's obviously getting very vocal, getting very defensive against not just the general public, but also against those that criticize her, right? The critics out there that obviously have a lot of valid points as to why these shows are just failing one after the other and why they are all labeled and considered to be ratings disasters. We all know that across the board, the acting, the directing, the producing of these projects, and more just do not work, and that's exactly why Netflix is actually losing a lot of credibility. Now, we know one thing about Meghan right now is that there's a lot of different events that they're trying to pull in order to boost familiarity about this upcoming Christmas special, and already it's beginning to actually be an utter colossal failure. Now, what's interesting about this yet again is that we already know that Meghan is trying to find any kind of a path to really just boost any kind of recognition, not just for herself, but also for her upcoming holiday special that is set to drop by December of this year, if, and that's if, things go as planned when it comes to their scheduling. However, with Meghan Markle desperately trying to water down the backlash after Season 2 was a ratings failure, already she is working on the Christmas special. However, one major development going on now, it has more to do with what recently happened to Meghan Markle at an exclusive Netflix event. It turns out that just recently an event was held by Netflix specifically for critics and also those in the mainstream media to get a first look at Meghan Markle's Christmas special. Now, this consisted of a series of exclusive photographs of the series and even short clips of the special that were filmed during the reshoots of With Love Meghan Season 2. And though the special isn't complete just yet, the first look was provided to critics. Greg Peters, Ted Sarandos, Meghan Markle, and among others were on stage, as it turns out, where a special song was played that featured short lyrics from Meghan Markle herself, surprisingly. It was a remixed version of Frosty the Snowman, where critics started to boo Meghan Markle off stage and heckled her. These critics are the same exact critics that asked Meghan Markle direct questions about her acting capability just 3 weeks ago at another Netflix event, and were invited back to this one for the holiday special, where the booing and heckling was too intense for Meghan, where she was escorted off stage and how it was her idea to be guided off stage behind the curtain for a brief time, until the overall drama watered down from the critics. Now get this is when assistants of Netflix had to come in the auditorium to those critics on the floor to inform critics to control their behavior and to behave themselves with certain questions asked toward Meghan Markle. Later on, it turns out that the very same critics and their privileges to actually ask questions to Meghan Markle were stripped away and cancelled by the assistants when she came back on stage appearing exhausted and embarrassed. Meghan reportedly hid behind the curtains while the song was playing as she was being booed by critics and heckled off stage. In addition to this, the plans were shifted around where Ted Sarandos informed the assistants to not allow any critics to ask any questions during the event toward Meghan Markle, and only to both Greg and himself. And that's exactly what happened, where Meghan was more or less of a spectator to the audience on stage, looking very awkward and lost. Now guys, let me say one thing about this. Now, the fact that this event really was that much of a disaster, it goes to show you that Netflix, should really reconsider how they try to handle these exclusive internal events of promoting specific upcoming projects. And I don't see them doing this with Stranger Things. I don't see them doing this with Squid Game or anything that's exclusive to Netflix. So I don't know why they are starting to do this only with Meghan Markle as a whole. And it really makes you wonder why they're doing it specifically catered to her. This whole special treatment for her is something very questionable by Ted Sarandos, but the fact that it's backfiring and the fact that it's really, just getting back at them in their face really just goes to show you that nobody wants to hear or listen about Meghan Markle. It's exactly why, by the way, there were far less reviews on Season 2 than Season 1, because they all figured it out, right? They all figured out how inauthentic this show really is, how phony it really is, and just how poorly, put together it really was when it came to filming it, having the overall actors act in it. It just did not work. This is where it gets interesting, though, alright? So moving on. To make matters, of course, worse for Meghan is that the critics are planning to come forward with the public to share their experiences directly, both of what happened just recently and also what occurred 3 weeks ago on various social media platforms, and on certain radio shows as well, that will start to air during the month of October, so next month. Future Netflix events like this are now seriously being considered to get scrapped and cancelled by the Netflix board to prevent further issues down the road. Now again, look, they could have done this weeks ago if they really wanted to, really just scrapping this entire strategy of having exclusive events for critics, for those in the mainstream media, correspondents, etc., etc. They could have prevented all of that, and they decided to just double down on really creating these specific events for Meghan Markle only. Again, like I said before, you don't see this happening with Stranger Things or, Squid Game, months and months before the release of these shows. You may see it like a couple of weeks beforehand, not months though. We've never seen anything like this before by Netflix. And again, we know one thing about Ted Sarandos is that everything he does, it seems to backfire. It seems to really go downhill for him. And the board that sides with him, or at least, over 50% of the board that sides with him, they don't really seem to get the clue. They don't get the memo. They really just don't get it. That it's not just the people, not just the general public, it's the actual critics, those in the mainstream media, right? Professional critics that are actually invited to these events that also really just are calling out all the nonsense. Nobody wants Meghan Markle over at Netflix. So to conclude, so far it's said that Netflix has little to no confidence in the holiday special, of course, after the first look deal, and the Meghan Markle situation and how that landed, of course, all in a very messy situation because of Ted Sarandos and the board. Greg Peters, the producers, and the executives have no faith in it at all. Now, we know one thing about Greg is that he's part of the division. Rightfully so, by the way. He is the one that really tried to call everything out. He's the one that tried to expose all the wrongs that Ted Sarandos is doing. And that created a lot of division. You have a lot of producers and executives that are sided with, Greg Peters, but you got well over half the board members that love what Ted is doing, and that's unfortunately going to allow him to do whatever he wants to do at any point in time in his career at Netflix. Overall, I would like to hear what everyone, though, has to say about this whole situation between the critics heckling and booing her off stage to this specific event that featured a Frosty the Snowman remix that had lyrics done by Meghan Markle. So what is she singing now? I'm really confused about all this, but we already know that she does plan to do some singing down the road to create or boost something else in her career. But overall, I would like to hear what you all have to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.